Hello my beautiful puddings, welcome to today's video. I hope you're all doing well. We're going to make Ramona the Bat today. Bats are one of my favourite animals. In these clips here you'll see the grey-headed flying fox. They're actually roosting just behind my studio, so it's a bit of fun every evening to get to see them waking up and going to get some breakfast. I've been wanting to make a bat for a long time. Ramona isn't exactly based on any particular kind of bat, especially not a flying fox because of the way her nose is shaped. But I did make her for my first gallery exhibition back in July. Originally I wanted to make 3 dolls based off of artwork that I did as a child, but unfortunately I was working a lot at another job and trying to create these pieces for a deadline for the show. I got a bit caught up in what would kind of look better together as a collection and something that I didn't have to put as much thought into the design process. I was having a bit of creative blockage trying to recreate art from when I was a child. So I just made Cypress from my childhood art. Is a little stoner dog. I do have a video of him already up on my channel. I originally did Ramona's design a couple of years ago, and this time I just made her a little bit punk and tried to change up the colours from what my original concept was. I don't often struggle with creative blockages. My brain's just like an undying creativity tap, and ideas will just flow out of it at a constant rate, which sometimes is a little bit frustrating because I can't physically keep up with that amount. Like now, we've just finished October, we've just finished Halloween, everyone else is starting to move on to Christmas designs, and all my brain can think about is Valentine's Day. So I really suffer with that. I get a bit carried away and my ideas are so much more forward from what I'm actually doing. It's actually quite frustrating. By the time Valentine's comes around, I'll probably be well and truly over it and completely moved on mentally from the dolls that I have lined up to create in that time period of January to early February. And I'll honestly probably just be thinking about winter themed dolls all the time. Ramona has actually been exhibited in 2 shows now. The one that I originally made her for was in Glebe, and it was the winter show, and that one was hosted by Gas Sydney. And the second show was in Shellharbour, and it was with Feverish Mag, and it was their first gallery show. I'll link both of their Instagram handles below so you can check them out. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about inspiration, where it comes from for me at least. I am always inspired by animals and nature, which sounds really cliche, and especially for an artist. Like, I'm not a landscape artist or anything, so why would I be inspired by nature? But making anthropomorphic animals, like, they still have to retain the personality of the animal and the environment that they would live in actually in the wild. So like an iguana wouldn't wear a winter sweater. He'd be out in the sun, basking, wearing something more like summertime clothes. So then I start thinking about bats and like what their personalities are more like. And I think it's really suiting that she's a little punk. I also get a lot of inspiration from artists that I follow along with and my friends' pets. They just all seem super sweet. That's where more of my like cottagecore vibes come from. So I guess it's just my interpretation of their sweet personalities. I imagine that they are. I'm sure some of them are little gremlins. But to basically sum up, wild animals are punks and domesticated animals are cottagecore queens. A lot of my inspiration also comes from a lot of the books that I read as a child, like Beatrix Potter, which wouldn't be any surprise, like Peter Rabbit runs around on 2 legs with a vest on. Shirley Barber was also one of my favourite storybook writers and illustrators. Her illustrations have just inspired my entire life, and I can see a lot of her work in mine now as I'm getting older. It's really awesome because I've found a lot of stories that I never read as a child. I'm getting to explore new illustrations that I'd never seen before and stories as well, so it's given me a lot of inspiration for my own stories in the future. I talked about it a bit in my Frankenstein video as well, that I have a lot of inspiration from my childhood from watching classic monster movies and just I love Frankenstein and Dracula and all of those classic universal monsters. So a lot of that kind of bleeds through into a lot of my other characters as well. And as I've gotten older, I've really delved more into like learning about other monsters and mythology and stuff like that. Especially with Mab's Drawloween that we do each year, I've discovered so many monsters that I didn't know existed. And I especially love yokai. I've only kind of discovered them in the last 7 to 8 years, I think. And I will have to get a video of a kappa up. I did make one a long time ago that was a Patreon exclusive, but the video just somehow magically disappeared and I've never been able to recover it. So I will have to make one for you guys. So I'll just circle back to the fashion history kind of thing. If you didn't know, I did actually used to dressmake professionally for many years, and it was under the same name, Kittie Pillar. If you go back in my Instagram for about eternity, you will actually see them. Corsetry was my specialty, and a lot of what I did was inspired by traditional corsetry and traditional dress, and it's just kind of like a different take on it. It was a little bit more punk, I guess you'd say, and a little bit more gothic. I made mostly custom made gowns, but I did have a couple of ranges where I designed my own clothes. I take a lot of inspiration from traditional fashion, different eras and different areas as well. They're very different times. I don't know if that makes sense. I love using vintage fabric because it has a very different feel to it, like it's lived another life. All of that adds into the doll's personality and it forms a very different background for them, and I want to work at aging new bought fabrics this year so that they do have that kind of more lived in feel, especially creating like kids and monsters that have been running around in the dirt and the mud and tearing their clothes and all of that. I want to kind of more develop aging fabrics to kind of give it that worn look. I would like to do replicas of clothing that I designed when I was dressmaking in my doll designs. If you don't follow me on Pinterest, definitely check that out because I do get a lot of inspiration from there as well, and I save everything to my boards, especially my clothing board I have is massive. If you ever want to get an idea of what I'm going to be working on in the near future, you can always jump on there. I will link it below, and I do just save troves of the same theme of clothing when I have an idea and I get really excited and I start to actually research the themes that I'm going for with certain dolls. So if you want to check that out, leave the link below. I save a lot of inspiration for my illustrations and stuff on there as well if you want to check it out. I think doll making can be very different to a lot of other art forms in that it's not really political and it doesn't often promote like a deeper sense of meaning. There's not like a million ways that it can be interpreted because it is more just a character. It's more simplified, but it's also not at the same time. With my doll making anyway, it's more of like a nostalgic feeling, a safe feeling, and it's just something more connected to an inner child rather than provoking any like deeper thinking or anything like that. I think it's more of a connection that it creates more than anything. But anyway, I'm gonna thank my patrons here. Thank you all so much. You keep me going every single month and you've all been so patient while everything's been a bit difficult this last little bit. I'm gonna leave you all with the rest of the video and some glamour shots at the end. Let me know what you think of Ramona, and I'd love to hear what you're inspired by as well. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.